a new man is introduced to Squad 13, Grossman, the chief instructor for second years. The man asks Kuro what happened to his face, but the boy lies, saying that he fell down the stairs. Grossman informs Squad 13 that they're going to have a 3-week grace period before mandatory participation in the mock battles. Han smiles in determination. Grossman was warning them not to take this time off lightly. We are now skipping to a gun survival competition between Squad 7 and Squad 9. Squad 9 has the highest score in this activity. Canute takes off his helmet, complaining how hot it is, but Han slams it back on his head. Are you trying to get yourself killed? Don't ever take your helmet off, no matter what. You got that? Han doesn't want to let anyone in his squad die. He puts his own helmet on and explains the plan, moving bunker. This gun survival game begins with Squad 9 starting to advance. Han tells his boys it's time to go. The activity begins and everyone in the gym is watching. Dimitri and Simon also see the commotion, interested in Han's team. Squad 9 holds a tree line but has no sight on Han's men. They go to push in, but Canute has eyes on them, but fears that they are pushing up too soon. Han also starts to stress due to the now increased pressure, but they manage to prepare their trap. They just need to catch a break. Han knows Canute is planning to join them as we see the boy running, but he gets shot in the leg, causing him some intense pain. He turns around in a last-ditch effort to take at least one down with him, but he fires and completely misses the target, and manages to find some cover behind a tree. He knows the plan, but getting to his boys with this injured leg will prove difficult. Squad 9 halts their assault, questioning why there's only one of them here. Is a lookout necessary in a 4-on-4? Something has to be wrong here. The leader offers to go and asks his boys to cover, and we shift to Han telling Kuro and Jose that it's time to move. Canute has bought them enough time, and by now he's probably injured. But thanks to that, the other 3 have recovered their strength. They spent a lot of time cutting and bringing trees, so they needed to recover their psychic energy. But now it's time to show what Squad 13 is made of, as they move out with a movable cover. Dimitri and Kuro are both impressed, but look at each other awkwardly. Canute is still holding his position, but as he tries to reload, Squad 9's leader approaches, wondering what the hell is going on. He thought this was a trap, but whatever. Dimitri and Simon watch on, waiting to see what Han is planning, but all of a sudden, Han's movable cover starts pushing Squad 9, and they can't stop it. Squad 9's men are only good with firearms, and their psychic ability is lacking, and Han is exploiting this weakness as he's pushing them back. The men try to stall for time so Kuro can get tired, but this tree shield isn't only for cover, as Jose fires up his flare powers, and he starts lighting up smoke, causing Squad 9 to be flushed from their cover. Han is happy with how this is progressing as Squad 9 starts to cough uncontrollably. They try to catch their breaths, but both men are taken out in 2 quick shots. Thanks to Kuro's foresight ability, Han continues his assault and Squad 13 wins. Everyone in the gym is going crazy. How the hell did they manage to win? Kuro's powers are crazy, and that Han kid is no joke. Dimitri is pumped up for his rival, but Simon looks nervous. In the back, Grossman watches on, interested in Han. Squad 13 is now in their rooms, celebrating their victory. Canute is happy it worked out, cause being shot hurts like hell. The squad is enjoying a feast and Jose starts off a toast to their squad leader. Han gets awkward but thanks his teammates. His plan was a long shot, but they executed it perfectly. Kuro pumps his fist and he always knew that it would work. And Han is happy that they matched up with Squad 9, because he had the most information on them. Canute tries to say something nice, but holds his stomach in pain. But even if he was shot, he would never miss a meal. The group laughs on, and we shift to a shot of Grossman in front of his computer, starting to sweat. He picked Squad 9 to decimate Squad 13. To think they would win is unbelievable. He needs to take care of them before they become a bigger problem. He finds a picture of Kato, thinking Squad 7 is the perfect ones for this job. They will do whatever it takes to take them down. All he has to do is make sure that they can't lose. Han wakes up unable to sleep, and he was so worried about being expelled. But he has people that count on him now, so he can't fail, and they will win no matter what they are up against. The next day comes and now it's Squad 1 versus Squad 13, and it's the same bandana guy leading his men. Now they know to avoid Kuro and Jose's powers. Bandana pats one of his men and says that he's with him. Their psychic abilities may be strong, but let's make sure they can't stay focused. They don't know how the other 2 will fight, but no matter. Squad 1 will make their captain the strongest guy in ARC, and Mr. Bandana hands the captain's span to the big guy in their party. Dimitri is watching again, thinking Grossman must be pissed off to send the top 2 squads back to back to fight Squad 13. In this competition, the squad can only win once they take down the enemy team's captain. Squad 1's captain is hard to take down even with 2 or 3 men. The rest of their group will support the captain. Squad 1's specialty is to charge, and Dimitri can't wait to see how Han counters this one. But as soon as Squad 1 sees Squad 13, Mr. Bandana is taken aback. why is Kuro the captain? As you see him nervous behind Jose and Canute. Squad 1 starts to get confused, but Jose and Canute tell Kuro not to worry, they're gonna protect him. Bandana tells his guys to stick with the plan, and they charge in. But as they do so, Han is watching from above the tree line. There's no need to take all of them out. All they need to do is take out the captain. The two squads charge in, and Jose fires up his ability, and ducks underneath the slash. Canute is holding his own as well, and Han watches on, and signals Kuro to get ready. No need to worry guys, we got this. Han jumps off the tree and is being manipulated by Kuro's power. Jose and Canute are grabbed by Squad 1's captain, but as Mr. Bandana gets cocky, Han comes flying in. But before Mr. Bandana can catch on to what is happening, Han swoops in to Squad 1's captain, completely decimating him, knocking him out. And with that, Squad 13 is the victor yet again, as Han holds up their captain's headband. Everyone in the gym is speechless. Did Han really jump off that tree? It was like 5 stories high. Wow, he's so awesome. The gyms light up in awe of Han and his squad, and Dimitri smiles. He knew Han was smart, but his strategies are insane. The prey starts to build and build, but one man is beginning to get angry, and none other than Kato, the man who's known for not realizing Han's talents. We flash back to one day before the match where Han and Kuro were practicing this dive tactic. They finish up and Han is impressed with Kuro's power. Han says that controlling humans with telekinesis is hard, and if it wasn't, then everyone would just be able to fly. All Kuro needs to do is control Han's speed, so as he falls, no one gets seriously hurt. We shift back to the present and Kuro apologizes to Han. It's his fault that his arm was broken in the fall. Han tells him to relax, it's all good. Kuro made sure that they got the win, and they took down that beast of a man in one hit. Jose comments that they shouldn't have any matches until Han's arm fully heals, but interrupting their thoughts is a match scheduled. Squad 7 versus Squad 13. Footsteps are heard as Kato runs into Grossman's room, with sweat beading down his face. Squad 13 is now confused. How can they get another match so soon, even when Han is injured? They must be trying to punish them. Jose wants to talk to the instructors, and we shift back to Grossman and Kato's talk. Grossman smiles. You're designed to win, Kato. Are you still scared? Kato's veins bulge. He wants to beat the life out of Han, and Grossman tells the cadet to prove it. We shift back to Squad 13 and Han tells his boys there's no use complaining. All they need to do is win. He's gonna figure something out, don't worry. Kato approaches Han asking if he's gonna be alright with only one arm. But Han says that having only his left arm is more than enough to take care of Kato. Don't worry, man. But Han says that his left arm is more than enough to take care of him. Don't worry. Kato gets into Han's face, telling him air combat isn't something you can get overnight. You're smart enough to know that, right? Han tells the man that he'll wipe the floor with him, and Kato swears to kill Han, but Han looks at the man coldly. If you never killed somebody before, don't make a threat like that. And with that cold-ass statement, Kato runs off. Han is in a pinch and knows what Kato is saying is true. They need to practice. Han is trying to use his psychic ability, but is struggling to lift the air bit, and they might be screwed even if Han was healthy. He can only control 2 air bits, but right now, he can barely lift 1. He can't rely on Jose since he needs to use his ignition ability. They would have to have Kuro control all 4, but Han doesn't want to put pressure on him like that. And even without a strong supporter, Squad 7 has strong fighters with good psychic abilities, and the teamwork they built under Kato isn't something to laugh at. If they fight them head on, they will have no chance of winning. Jose uses his skill, but in mid-air, it's not too effective. There isn't much to set on fire, and considering how fast people are moving, he won't be able to hit them. Kato's squad watches the boys from the rafters, confident in their abilities. Han thinks that winning is looking impossible. We shift to the match day, and all of the men in the gym are talking. Why is Han's squad fighting again? Isn't he injured? And they don't have air combat experience. Dimitri thinks that this is some sort of punishment, and Simon looks pretty worried. He turns around to see Dimitri and asks what the hell he's doing. Don't stand behind me like some creep. Simon thinks that Grossman is trying to make sure that all of the squads have a less than 50% win rate, and uses this to manipulate the training data. But for Han to win this, he's gonna need something special. Squad 7 and 13 face each other, and Kato tells his boys that it's time to show these traitors what their punishment is. Han smiles confidently and asks if Jose is feeling good. The plan is all about his secret weapon. The fight begins, but Kato's mouth immediately drops, as Squad 13 is controlling 16 air bits. No way. How the hell are they doing this? Even if Kuro can control 4, how can the rest of them control 2 each? This doesn't make any sense. Han laughs. So Kato, looks like you got a lot on your mind. Let me help you take a load off. Kato tries to keep his squad's morale high and tells him that we're gonna take them down one by one. Han has been practicing his telekinesis non-stop. It's still far from average, but if he concentrates only on this, he can throw the air bits much faster, combining his strength with it, as he hurls an air bit at Squad 7. Kato is shocked at Han's plan. It's fast, but are you planning to use all of them like that? As long as they dodge them, they should be okay. But we get a flashback to Jose saying that his power isn't that useful. But Han has a plan to make sure that it is. And as his airbit is flying at Squad 7, Jose starts using his ignition, causing the airbit to explode in the center of Squad 7. Dimitri and Simon are completely shocked, along with everyone in the gym. Did they just blow up an airbit? Those things are expensive. Who cares? Squad 13 is the best. Han continues this combination attack as 2 men from Squad 7 fall from the airbits. Kato struggles to find a countermeasure and Grossman comes rushing out, trying to stop Han. We shift to after this battle and Grossman calls for Han to come to his office. Han has been there for 10 minutes, but not a word was said. Grossman scratches his head and asks Han if he knows how much those airbits cost. Han doesn't and says he has no money, but Grossman says that Han is lucky he's at ARC. He couldn't afford one in his entire lifetime. Grossman sighs and technically Han didn't break any rules, but his methods are stirring up some trouble. Some instructors might give him credit for doing something like this, but Grossman is not one of them. Run these plans by me before you blow up ARC property, please. Han wants to ask Grossman a question. If he was fighting a dragon, would you be so caught up about expenses? They have to win, no matter what. Grossman is startled and sees a splitting image of John Red coming from Han, and stands up laughing. He likes Han's attitude, and looks forward to Han's future battles. We shift to Kato, who's reminiscing about his loss. He put up a fight to the very last second, and Han even jumped off his airbit to make sure that he got Kato. Kato scolds Han for using dirty tricks like that. People are gonna look down on him. Han asks if Kato came all the way here to tell him that. But the man just walks out telling Han not to lose to anyone until they fight again. We shift back to Squad 13's room as they celebrate yet another victory, and Han breaks the news that they are fine, even after blowing up some airbits. Jose is worried and Kuro asks what's wrong. He's suspicious about his bracelet. Whenever they start celebrating, it always goes off, and right on cue, a new match is scheduled. Squad 13 versus Squad 5. Capture the flag. And this news shocks everyone. We shift to Dimitri chaining, pumped up at fighting his rival. Han just laughs. Typical Grossman, to put them against a squad specialized in hand-to-hand combat. It looks like their lives won't get any easier. Dimitri is finishing up a run, but a long-haired man walks past him with a weird glance. This was Squad 5's previous leader. Dimitri puts his hand on his shoulder, kind of bragging that ever since he was put in as leader, they've been winning non-stop. But the man tells him to get lost before he kills Dimitri. Dimitri is shocked at first, but then gets excited. They're gonna have to duke it out. The next chapter starts with Han visibly exhausted fighting somebody else. He doesn't know how this man is so strong, as you see the masked cadet from before, wielding dual blades. He has a gleam in his mask and disappears, and when he reappears, he hits Han with a barrage of strikes, sending him to the ground in pain. We shift back to Han talking with Grossman, who informs him that Dimitri was seriously injured from the man that he provoked earlier, as we see Dimitri's head slammed into the ground. But the competition will still go on. Han thinks it should be easier since the leader is now gone, but Grossman hands Han some papers, an application for a squad transfer request. Some members from Kato's squad are getting annoyed that he doesn't recognize their talents. Han thinks that something like this was bound to happen, and these are all level 2s who have high hopes for competing right off the bat. Grossman tells Han to take his time, but Han immediately accepts all of the applicants, as we see new 4 members to Squad 13, Domingo, Kasim, Andy, and Jigo. Han tells them that today they will start preparing for the competition tomorrow, and he will analyze their skills. One man has a question as Jigo tells Han to please take care of him as a fellow Korean. Han gets angry telling the man that nationality doesn't matter. Show your skills. Jigo gets pissed, thinking Han is a stiff, and runs off. The other members are confused, but we go towards the competition. Squad 5 versus Squad 13. Capture the flag. The dome closes, causing a nighttime environment, shocking Squad 13. Han tells everyone to relax. They're gonna wait until their eyes adjust. Knut's team will head out, and Jose's team will support them. Han, Jigo, and Kuro will attack from the side. Squad 5 without Dimitri should be easy, but don't underestimate any opponent. Let's go. 10 minutes pass and the squads head out. And after 5 minutes, they are decimating Squad 5. Han overlooks their unconscious bodies and thinks this is too easy, and moves over to get the flag. But one man stands on top of it, the masked cadet, with his dual swords by his side. Why is he waiting there while his whole team was slaughtered? The man starts to get up, and in the blink of an eye, he takes out most of Squad 13's members. Han is taken off guard, and Kuro pushes him out of the way. He gets hit instead, sending him to the ground. Han looks at this new masked assailant, and he must have some sort of teleportation ability. Han has no time to adjust, but as he swings, the man dashes back. Jigo tries to rush in, but the masked man leaps over him and kicks him in the head. We shift to the crowd, and Squad 13 was done in just like that. The masked guy has a nickname, silence. And there's a rumor about this man. During his training, he was injured in his nervous system and lost the ability to speak. But from that incident, he started leveling up his ability fast and became a subject of experimentation from a soldier on level 3. And this must be the difference between level 2 and 3. Han doesn't stand a chance, as he manages to stand back up looking at silence. I don't know who you are, but I don't have any intention of losing. Skeleton mask. Han harnesses his power into his spear, and Silence gets into his stance, ready to teleport and finish off Han. Simon is watching on, knowing that Silence is stronger than them at this point, and Han has no chance. The masked man sits in his stance, preparing his aura. Han looks on. If he can't block this next strike, he's gonna lose. But there's no way he's gonna give up. He thinks about what just happened. He can move about 50 feet in a single stroke, and if he loses energy in between strikes, there's no way he can do it twice in a row. Han's win condition isn't to beat Silence, but to take the flag. All he needs to do is block one strike. Han spots the first move as Silence's foot starts to move. He vanishes, leaving behind a purple haze. Han counts 2 steps, and on the 3rd strike, he ducks under Silence's slash, shocking him to see that he missed. Han sends an upward strike that barely misses Silence. But the gap in skill shows, as Silence kicks Han down, trapping him, ready to end him. But Han starts to smile, because behind Silence is Han's sword falling down on him, smacking him on the head. He manages to regain himself, but he looks at Han holding their flag. You snapped back in 3 seconds, huh? Impressive. But it was more than enough time for me to get your flag. Looks like we win, Skull Mask. The gym starts to blow up. Han is so awesome. He won against the 3rd year. But Simon grits his teeth in anger. We shift to Kuro feeding a cat, and he relates to this stray animal from his life as an orphan. He had no friends, but hey, look at him now. Where you start doesn't have to be where you end. Jigo thinks Kuro is a loser talking to a cat and scares the young boy. Jigo gets to the point. The squad doesn't have a second in command, and Jigo was hoping to fill that spot. But as he's explaining it, the cat rubs his leg and Jigo kicks the shit out of it in disgust, shocking Kuro. Jigo tries to get back to the conversation, but Kuro's power flares up. All of the items around him move as Kuro warns the man never to do that again. Kuro runs off to help the cat, leaving Jigo fearing for his life. We shift to Han visiting Dimitri in the hospital, and Dimitri asks why he's here. Han had his doubts, but after seeing his friend, he's sure that a 3rd year did this to him. Dimitri grips the bed. It was the previous squad leader. Man, the gap from 2 and 3 is way different. Not just different, it's an insane power gap. Han looks over and he's never seen Dimitri so defeated. He couldn't even land a single finger on the guy. Dimitri remembers that something was off about him. He wasn't normal. Han thinks that this must be the result of the 3rd year experimentation. 2nd year is pretty much the end of training, so whatever you do in year 3 is related to real battles. As the boys speculate what really happens in their next level, we see a man in a metallic suit exiting a room. But in front of the exit is the cat Kuro was chasing. Kuro finally catches up with it, but stands in front of this suited soldier, asking who the hell Kuro is. Kuro starts to sweat, but he remembers this voice. Sergeant Red? The man smiles and releases his mask. Oh, hey Kuro, almost didn't recognize you for a second. Kuro ended up running to ARC's R&D facility. John asks what the kid is doing here. Are you lost? He takes off his suit and buys Kuro a drink, telling him that a car is coming to take him back to his dorm. Kuro is surprised. Aren't you mad? But John isn't angry at all. That psycho frame you saw is being released soon anyways, so it doesn't really matter. It's not like you can leave ARC. Kuro understands, and right now him and his friends are property of ARC. John smacks Kuro on the head. He's not some jerk who gets mad at everything. That would make me ridiculous. Kuro is shocked at what he is experiencing, but an old man starts creeping behind him, asking John how the test went. John tells him to decrease the amount of dragon material. It's hard to control for the 1st generation guys, but for kids like Kuro, psychic manifestation is second nature. The man introduces himself as Charlie Smith, the chief of Team 1. Kuro shakes his hand, and John says that this man is responsible for designing all of the combat suits. Charlie starts ranting about the progress that he has made, and these new frames will be like night and day compared to the 1st generation model. John tells Kuro that the suits are made for his class, and he can barely move in them. Kuro takes it all in, that he's gonna wear this suit one day and end up fighting a war. The car comes to pick him up, and John takes a hit of his cigar, asking Charlie what he does with the old models. Charlie, of course, plans to scrap them for the material, but John tells him to hold at least one. Some student might put it to good use. We shift back to Han, and the typical day at ARC starts at 5 in the morning, but he wakes up at 4 to organize his thoughts and go over his team's strategy and grade his own ability. Still, his psychic power is lacking, but he's discovered a special skill, one that only he can use. Super precision. He can control his abilities much better than anyone else. Kuro and Simon can crush a pencil into dust, but Han can write a book with that same pencil. And he has the best control out of everyone, so he needs to train even harder to make good use of it. But all of a sudden his bracelet goes off. He meets his squad for their morning run, and Dimitri's squad is also on the track. The two greet each other, and Han asks Dimitri how the dimensional tear was. And we learn that this anomaly is a remnant of a gate that is closing after a Dragon Legion's attack. And the orders for the second years is to experience this sight. It might prove to be useful. Han heard that Psykers get a strange sensation around it, and Dimitri says that he felt kind of fuzzy, and tells Han to go check it out for himself. Han regroups with his boys after the run, telling them to shower and eat, and to assemble at the helipad at 10. He dismisses them, and another man approaches, asking Han to have breakfast. And this is John, the strategist from Squad 10. And after Han handled silence, Grossman stopped trying to set them up. But eventually, Squad 13 did suffer some defeats, and Squad 10 was the first to do so. Han was actually meaning to talk to John to learn some things about his strategies. We shift to the helicopter trip, and the leading officer tells the cadets that they are headed to the Dimensional Gateway, and this is where the Dragon Legion spawned in from, and split to attack two targets, Korea and China. North Korea tried to rain nuclear bombs on the dragons, but all it did was kill their own civilians. South Korea took in all the refugees and defended the invasion, but it's still recovering from that attack. This is the place that Han and Jigo are from. The helicopter flies close to the tear, and we see the purple and blue fissure appear in the ground. The hatch doors open, and the cadets see this phenomenon. Han immediately starts to feel an intense pressure. It feels as if he's about to get swallowed up at any second. The helicopter turns around to return, and Squad 3 is happy to go back. That feeling was no joke. Han looks over at Squad 10's helicopter, and John winks back. But out of nowhere, the helicopter surges with purple energy and blows up in midair, leaving Han stunned. Han is speechless. What just happened? Squad 10 was annihilated. He's brought back to reality by the commanding officer, telling him to get his men off the chopper now. This bird is about to blow up. Han quickly gets his team together to get off of the chopper, and they begin parachuting down. But as the man is explaining the orders, the helicopter explodes, sending Han flying out. Han wakes up, and he just saw the sergeant die right in front of him. But he managed to land safely. He starts to panic, but takes a deep breath. Keep a level mind. He gets back to the man that we all know. He's been training for situations like this. He needs to go towards the smoke pillars and check for survivors. Han cuts himself down, but sees someone in the bushes. But it's Jigo. He kept the eye on the chopper and knew Han was going to be the last one out, and wanted to regroup with him. Han is impressed from his decision making and tells him that they need to find the others. They carve trees as they go and approach one of the crashed helicopters. They look inside but see all of Squad 10 cooked alive. Jigo throws up, thinking what would have happened if he didn't escape, and looks towards Han, wondering if he has any feeling. How is he so calm? This is not Han's first time seeing dead bodies, and they need to move. But interrupting his thoughts, a minion of the dragons appears, a werewolf. Han prepares his knife and tells Jigo to get anything that they can use from that helicopter. They can't run, it's faster than they are. All they can do is fight. The werewolf lunges in, slashing at Han, sending its tendrils at his hand. Han tells Jigo to go, now, and the man dashes off. He wants to keep running as Han battles the werewolf. He dashes back, dodging its strike, but the beast winds its hand back to slash at Han, almost cutting the tree in half. Jigo approaches the chopper, and he's scared to go inside, and he can use Han as bait, but he slaps himself in the face. Damn it, Jigo, you bastard. You're not a man who betrays his own comrades. He gets inside, trying to find something that he can use. Han is getting pushed back as he is grabbed by the werewolf. But right before he's eaten, Jigo sends an object at the wolf with telekinesis and apologizes to Han and starts firing off more plates at the monster. This is all he can find, and he throws the makeshift spear right next to Han. The werewolf turns his attention towards Jigo and pins him to the ground. But before it can finish him off, Han takes the spear and plunges it into the back of the monster's head, saving his cadet. Jigo tries to get up. This thing's dead, right? Please help me out. Han helps him up and thanks Jigo, and they walk off, hoping to meet a rescue squad. The rest of Han's men started a fire, and they're sure that Han will be able to find them with the smoke signal. Some other members from a different squad appear from the bushes, and they are from Squad 9. The instructor and squad leader from their squad died in the ambush, and they are the only survivors. And coming from behind the group is Han and Jigo. They are being attacked by 3 hunting type Elau, who are controlling werewolves. The cadets have no idea what to do. They have no weapons, but Han takes control of the situation, telling everyone to calm down. He has a plan. Even if the rescue team is en route, they are hours away. They need to make a defensible position and wait this out. 2 hours pass and the group is ready. This wouldn't have been possible for regular people, but for a group of psychers, it is. The cadets start to question Han's plan, and Inuk comes asking even if the rescue team comes, what will happen if that lightning strikes again? Han tells the boy that they cannot worry about that now, and this must be what real battles are like. This makes their training look like child's play. A group hears a howl from the forest and everyone gets into position. Han tells Kuro to use his ability and the boy flares up his aura, creating a barrier around the fortress. Jose is shocked. When did Kuro get this strong? A werewolf starts to approach and Han calls out for the javelin group and for his own team to move in. The javelin throwers will launch wooden spears with their telekinesis. They fire and all 4 of them hit their target. Han follows up but the beast retaliates and smacks Canute into a rock. Another beast approaches but falls for a trap, getting pierced by wooden spikes. Han asks Kuro where the next enemies are coming from, and 2 more are approaching from 12 o'clock. Jose is ordered to light the barricade, stopping their assault, and Han orders the javelin throwers to fire, taking them out one by one. As one of the wolves tries to jump over the fire, he is shot down almost immediately, and his body plunges into the fire. Only one left, and as it approaches, 4 javelins are thrown, but the werewolf blocks it with its hard spine. It's trying to bait out the spears. Han grabs the spear from one of the men and calls for Jigo and rushes in. He's gonna make sure that this beast will open its mouth. As Han stabs its foot, the beast yells out in pain, and Jigo pierces its head. Kuro yells for Jigo to watch out, and Han pulls the boy back. Jigo laughs, but a purple beam hits him in the stomach, sending him to the ground. Kuro tells Han that arrows are being fired at them, and Han knows that the Allow hunters are here, and tells Kuro to give him their positions. Han has one last trick up his sleeve, a 3-man guerrilla unit, as we see them perched up in the trees. The Allow hunters only reveal themselves when they think victory is assured, and at that very moment, he ordered his 3-man unit to jump on the wooden planks and use them as airbits, and as soon as Kuro locates them, he will guide them to the hunters, and they will get neutralized before they can get their barriers. As we see the 3-man unit decimate the hunters. Kuro begins to drop, feeling exhausted with blood streaming down his nose. Han and his men have exhausted all of their resources, and if any more enemies appear, they need to retreat. But, to Han's horror, another pack of werewolves lurk in the forest. The wolf pack starts to encircle the cadets. Han assumes that one of these must be the leader, and just like that, he spots it, a white fang, a werewolf with a higher intelligence. A black substance starts to envelop Han, despair. The werewolves begin to howl, and just as Han starts to give up, he tears away the threads that are binding him. They can make it out of this alive. He tells his men to retrieve their spears, and Kuro tries to draw out every ounce of his power. The cadets use telekinesis to retrieve their spears, but as the wolf lunges at them, a soldier in a metal suit appears. John arrived just in time, telling Han it's a miracle that he survived. We shift to the next day as Jose lifts his hand to the sky. Canute says that they were lucky. Half of the guys died that day. Jose can't help but admire that psycho frame. It took them everything they had to kill those wolves, but John came in there and made it look easy. Even though the situation was dire, everyone was happy to be alive. But Han stood there lost in his own thoughts. And ever since they came back, all the inter-squad conflicts became meaningless. Kato approached Han telling him that he hated his guts, but now he's happy to see him. And Han was right. Kato wasn't ready to kill anyone or see anybody die, and now he knows who their real enemy is. Han clenches his fist, and he knows the difference in power between the dragons and himself. He needs to get stronger, but interrupting his thoughts, someone sends a punch through the wall, and from his bracelet, Han Lee is called. Turns out that it was Silence, and this guy really doesn't like doors apparently. Han is being escorted and asked to summon him, and Silence presses some buttons on his bracelet iPad thingy, saying that John did, and stop asking questions. Han thinks that maybe Silence doesn't like him because of their match. The two approach John and we see Simon there as well. John tells the boy to sit, and we see a flashback to the instructors meeting. A quarter of the second years died, a heavy loss of assets to ARC. The commanding officer for this operation will be held responsible, and with that, the meeting is over. Grossman was the one in charge, and he's taking the heat for this. The instructors reviewed the incident, and the cadets were rated by an Allow mage. And these mages have the ability to open gates, and this is the first time that they are attacked like this. Most of the lower ranked monsters were dealt with, but this means that there is a higher chance that a war will break out soon. Maybe it's time to wake the Oracle. This news alerts John. We shift back to the present, and John is assigning Han and Simon to a new squad, codename W. They can choose between White and Whiskey as the squad name. The two look at each other, and Silence talks first, picking White, and it seems that he's a part of the squad as well. Simon and Han both agree, but John tells them that they're gonna go with Whiskey. He sits back in the sofa and starts debriefing their assignment. We shift back to the instructors meeting, and it seems they need the so-called Oracle if they want to stand a chance. Recor asks John what he thinks, and he offers to put a team together to see if they can capture this so-called mage. John reiterates this order to Han and Simon. They need to capture and allow mage to get information, and this news shocks the boys. But before they move out, Octo arrives and has the boys pick some dragon material weapons. Han grabs a spear, but all of a sudden, the blade emanates with aura. These weapons store psychic energy. Simon, looking at his, asks if there's something longer and more slim, but Octo starts to get mad. These weapons aren't made just like that. This is a rare material. Use whatever you can and return them once you're done. Octo then unveils another gadget as a hovering sphere floats in front of the boys. Each member gets 2 of these, a lightweight pocket-sized air pit. Han suits up with all his gear and the squad of 4 moves out. They arrive at the closest point and now they will continue on foot. Operation Catching Wizard. The squad rolls out looking badass, might I add, and we flash back to Han asking why he was chosen for this mission. John says that sure, a 3rd year might be more experienced, but Han is much better at leading an operation. He survived against a horde of enemies without any equipment and didn't have a single casualty. And that's not his only strength. Most of the survivors are suffering from psychological trauma, and that's the fate of the situation. Humans are bound to collapse. But Han is here, unfazed, and the only thing he is lacking is field experience, and that's why himself and Simon were chosen. We flash back to Simon watching Han defeat Silence, and it seems he has his own reason to get stronger as well. John calls for his group to hold their position, and they will camp out here and take turns sleeping. Han looks over at the forest that he was just in defending. There's some members of his squad that didn't make it, and they're probably not alive. Silence is next to Han, attempting to remove his mask, and Han says that he'll face the other way, so take it off. But Silence's face turns into a screen, mocking Han again. Some time passes and John is ready to move out. Communication won't work here on out, so switch to the local squad network. Silence sees allow recons and they're getting closer. John tells the 2 cadets to hold their fire. They will leave this up to Silence, as he decapitates them both in a flash. The word end appears on his mask, and John smiles. That bastard even programmed that? He's even more powerful than Han originally thought. But interrupting the fun, more enemies approach, 2 more recons. But before Silence can take them out, Han thinks it would be better for them to follow. They are off guard and heading back towards the tear. Maybe they're going back to their base. John thinks that Han has a good point, and Simon starts to get angry. He only thought of killing them. Simon curses Han, and he's gonna show him. Just wait. They follow the recons for some time as they approach the mage. John alerts his squad to the crystal on the staff of the mage. It's a psychic crystal. They heard about it in their lessons. It's an ore that can store massive amounts of energy, and this is what was used to attack the helicopters. And looking at it, it probably only has 1 more shot left. The enemy base has a mage with 6 guards. There's no wolves around, and John orders his squad to join Silence. The operation is a go. The allow mage can teleport, so Silence will focus on her, and the rest will handle the guards. Mistakes will not be tolerated. Han wonders what's in front of the altar, but is horrified to see his cadets' corpses laid out, the members of his squad no less. John sees Han start to let off energy and wonders why. At this rate, the mage will detect their presence. John sees no other option and thinks to tell his squad to retreat. The mage shouldn't have caught on just yet. But just as he thinks this, Han's energy spikes and the mage turns around, alerted to their location. John hits Han out of the way, dodging the huge blast, and John was injured in this attempt and tells Han to take over as commander. John yells at Han, asking if he came back to his senses yet, and Han grabs John, ready to retreat, cursing himself. The recons start chasing, but Silence starts fighting them. Simon gives support fire, but the recons block with their shields. Simon uses his telekinesis to lift 2 boulders and smacks 2 of the recons, but more are leaping on to his position. Is this how I die? But just before the recons can reach him, Silence quickly kills them, saving Simon's life. Simon just wonders how the hell Han ever beat this guy. The mage starts chanting and no more minions are chasing. They retreat and Han starts cursing himself. Silence starts beating Han around and it seems John has lost one of his legs. John says that they need to retreat, but Han stands up. No, they can't. They have to keep going. Silence gets up and kicks Han, but Simon tries to grab him and reminds Silence that Han is the commander right now. Silence lets go and Han regains himself. If his plan is lousy, he will be sending them to their deaths. Simon will hear Han out at the very least. He is the best strategist in their class. Han says that the situation isn't that bad, and Silence starts to get angry. Now the mage has no more ammunition and can't teleport. All the energy is depleted. Han thinks that this mage hasn't shown its face in a decade. Think about it. It tried to kill us, even if it meant using all of its energy, and called the warriors back to protect itself, rather than to chase them. Why would the mage do that if it can teleport? The 2 cadets nod and Han starts telling them the plan. Han stands in front of the tear, gripping his lightweight air bits. He's gonna capture this mage and ambush it from the other side of the tear. He needs the other 2 to distract the other forces. The mage can detect their energy, but it's gonna be hard while Han is inside of the rift. But that aside, the pressure from inside the rift is immense, and Simon wonders if Han can even handle it. He can die with the slightest mistake. Han is confident with his psychic control. He's not doing this to make up for what happened. He's doing this because this is the best chance to pull off the plan. Simon and Silence walk, and Simon knows that Han must have saw the pile of his dead squad members, and he may seem cold, but not everyone can feel nothing after seeing something like that, especially seeing his comrades brought together like that. And he was still focused enough to come up with another plan. This is the reason Squad 13 placed their trust in him. Han arrives at his location and takes off the unnecessary gear. He overlooks the rift and knows that failure means death. He pulls out his air bits and the 15-minute mark is up. It's time to start. Han begins traversing the rift and Simon and Silence start their assault. There are more guards this time around, but Silence begins mowing them down, with Simon providing cover fire. Simon is taking some down and snipes one that's right behind Silence. The two nod at each other, and Simon prays that Han pulls through. He doesn't want his first mission to end in failure. Han is getting across, but the pressure is starting to get to him. This is Dragon Fear. Han holds himself together. This isn't real. Don't hesitate. He bites down on his fingers and goes through the dragon's mouth. Simon in Silence almost dealt with all of the guards, and only two remain. They are protecting the mage. But right as Simon tries to shoot, the mage protects her minions by putting up barriers. They have a dense defense. But from the shadows, Han appears from the mage's back and body slams her into the ground, injecting her with the paralyzing agent. Simon and Silence take the cue and rush in. The mage begins to teleport, causing Han to panic, but the syringe he injected started to work, and the mage is passed out. The mission was a success. We shift back to Ark as Han looks over John. John tells him to stop looking at him like some sort of puppy. This isn't nothing that a prosthetic can't take care of. And he can probably get some disability checks when he retires. So stop apologizing, kid. John tells Han it was right of him to continue the mission, and thanks to that, they captured the mage. John is finishing up his reports and Han questions if it is even possible to interrogate these beings. But at Ark, it is. A psyker that specializes in telepathy. There's only one in the world. John tells Silence to stop waiting by the door and come in already, and the man comes in asking how John is feeling, but he just smiles. I was planning to lose some weight anyways, so now I'm like a leg lighter. Silence starts laughing and Han can't believe that Silence is actually talking with John. John soon kicks the two out, telling them that he needs to mourn his missing leg. Both of them walk out and Silence apologizes to Han. He would have done the same in his shoes. Han smiles, but he knows that he deserved it. He put everyone in danger. Silence now knows why John has such high hopes for Han. Han just jokes that it's hard to tell if John even likes anybody, and this makes Silence laugh. The two walk for a bit and part ways. Before Han leaves, Silence throws a rock at him and gives him a message. You better get to the 3rd year already, kid. The next chapter begins with some corporate guys getting out of a plane. We have an ambassador from the US, and Recor is informed that the Supreme Council inspectors have arrived. All the officials are given special bracelets and escorted to the main building. The US rep, James, takes the bracelet and says that he's fine. He wants to move at his own pace. The soldiers can't really argue, and they think that James is going to be a pain in the ass. But James turns around asking where he can find Han Lee. We shift to this guy meeting Han's squad with a lot of snacks ready for them. James tells the boys that there's a lot more where that came from, and he brought it because technically they're still young. Han tells the inspector that they need to train, and the inspector stops bothering Han's squad and thinks that this must be Han. Nothing noteworthy was written about him in the first year, but now he's become quite famous from how he handled the terror incident. James is chilling by a gate and starts to yawn. No matches are going on and most of the squads are taking breaks, but Han's squad doesn't take one day off. James sees them exit the training arena and Han orders them to get to the weapons training gym. James is impressed. He continues to watch as Han calls for Kuro to spar with him today. The two take their stance as Kuro is nervous. Why does Han want to spar me? He doesn't look like himself. Han thinks that he learned an important lesson in his mission. In a real fight, just having psychic powers won't be enough. Kuro needs to improve his physical combat. He's a boy with a man's body, so he needs to improve his mentality. Han charges in and Kuro activates his ability. He dodges the first strike and blocks the barrage, but he can't catch his breath. Han quickly disarms Kuro and wins the spar, telling him that even if he has foresight, he can't win by only defending. He needs to attack. Attack me, Kuro. The boy shuts his eyes and charges in, but Han quickly disarms him again, and he tells Kuro that he needs to have his eyes open when he attacks, and to have a tighter grip on his spear. Han tells Kuro to attack again, with everything that he's got. All of the cadets turn to see what happens. Kuro's chest starts to pound, but Han warns the boy, from this point forward, Han won't go easy on him. What's the matter, Kuro? Are you scared you're gonna hurt me? Kuro doesn't know why Han is acting like this, but flares up his powers. He's gonna go all out, and he's gonna trust Han. Instructor Wei asks Han what he wanted to see him about, and offers the boy some oolong tea. Han tries to hide the fact that he absolutely hates it, and Wei laughs. but Han gets to the point. He came here about Kuro. The boy lacks ferocity and always hesitates before he attacks. Han is worried that this trait will get him killed. Wei smiles and says that some people are bound to have different emotional distance. A grizzled soldier might have a hard time killing a civilian with his bare hands, but even a civilian can pilot a drone with a bomb attached to it. What Kuro needs is motivation. Han unzips his jacket ready to fight Kuro. Jose and Canute watch on, and James is also interested in this match. Han looks at Kuro and is impressed with his psychic power. Kuro starts the fight by sending spears at Han, but he easily catches one. The speed on these is quite slow, and it honestly would be faster if the boy just threw them. Han asks if Kuro is going easy on him. Han rushes in at Kuro, who tries to intercept him with his spears, but Han is closing the gap. Kuro, in a last-ditch effort, sends every spear at Han at once, but Han uses his own power to strengthen his jacket and uses it as a shield and slides under it. Everyone is shocked and Kuro is nervously gripping his spear. He tries to lunge, but Han breaks his spear with ease and bonks him on the head. At least this time he kept his eyes open. Han tells Kuro that his biggest weakness is that he's soft, and he even tried to send all the spears at Han's stomach. If he fired them at random, Han could have got injured in his arms or legs. So this is why Kuro fired them at his stomach. James is watching on, impressed, thinking that maybe he can get some info out of this boy. He jumps down and asks if he can borrow Han for just a second. The two sit by a bench and James tries his ability, which isn't a psychic power, super reactions. If he could say the right thing at the right time, he might be able to squeeze insider information out of Han. But just as he's getting to the climax, Han ends the story. He only told James exactly what was in his report, and Han's face didn't change even once. James thinks that this boy is smarter than he thought, as he sees him go back to training. Han thinks to himself that he needs to keep all of his squad's information confidential. James looks on and opens his phone to make a call. He's having this man check if Han has been in ARC the entire time after the tear incident. We see Han running with his squad with Dmitri not far behind. An instructor from Russia is watching, so Dmitri needs to be active. He's been followed around by this guy all day, and he keeps telling Dmitri that he needs to fight for their mother country once this war is over. Han doesn't understand, but Dmitri tells him that once the war with the dragons is over, humans will wage war on each other to control the world, and this news shocks Han. The boys are training hard with Han overseeing. He just can't help but think on what Dmitri said. Even if they defeat the world's greatest threat, peace will still be unattainable. But interrupting his thoughts, James busts into the room. The man knows that Han was in an ARC and had to be on a secret mission, and today he's gonna find out, as two men come behind him. Han sees a message pop up and alerts all of his men through the bracelets. They stare at James' thugs menacingly, and Han restrains James. And the bodyguards try to pull out their guns, but Kuro uses his power to break their hands. Han tells James that from this moment on, he's going to be under Squad 13's protection. They have been given orders, but interrupting this, a huge rumble shakes the building. They are under attack. Raid warning. Take control and protect the inspectors. James sees this notification and Squad 13 prepares themselves. Kuro asks who the enemy is, but he's informed that it's other humans. Han restrains James and his thugs and gears up. He uses his bracelet to communicate with the other squad leaders, asking how many guards each instructor has. James watches on and sees how Han is instantly accepted as the leader of all squads. Han calls in for everybody to gather at the 4th simulation Battle Dome, bringing all their combat gear. Han escorts the team to that location, and as they walk, Han tells James that due to how he reacted to the message, he assumes that he isn't a spy. James smiles and tells Han that this is the work of the pure humanists. This is a group that believes in the annihilation of psychers, who to them aren't human. Canute doesn't understand how they could do this when the dragons are about to invade. Do they want everyone to die? Apparently, this group thinks that if every psyker dies, the dragons will stop. But psychers only appeared after the threat arrived, so that theory doesn't make much sense. We see a helicopter hovering above, with many more hovering behind, and they start unloading on the campus. ARC's defenses activates and starts shooting down some of the enemy aircrafts. Han thinks that he is approaching the battlefield as he sees a helicopter crash nearby. Han thinks that some enemies are bound to be nearby, and Canute spotted 4. Han wanted to avoid a fight, but it might be inevitable. He tells his squad that from here on out, they might have to kill other people. The battle rages on and both sides are losing men quickly. The pure humanists are driven by their hatred for psychers, and they'll throw their own lives away to kill even one. James looks around and most of the kids in Han's squad don't look ready for this, except Canute. Han recognizes this as well and takes the blonde boy with him ahead. Psychers are stronger than the humanists, but in terms of murder, the humanists are veterans. We see James have a small knife, seemingly to cut out of his bindings. Canute and Han move out, and Han asks if he will be alright. Canute has no choice, and he'll have to think of them as dear. But this situation brings back bad memories for Han, as we shift back to South Korea. Han was trying to steal some food, and he was running towards a train, but was grabbed right at the last second. Before the train hits him, he kicks the man, sending him into the incoming train, killing him. Back to the present, Han and Canute see the battlefield and the two move out, and Han looks to use his airbits. He floats his jacket into a nearby building, and the humanists fall for the trap, lighting it up. Canute takes advantage of the situation and shoots one of the men down. The other humanist tries to take out Canute, but Han was ready to intercept. The man Canute shot isn't dead yet, and Canute closes his eyes, but Han tells him to keep them open as he finishes the humanist off. Han asks if the boy is okay, and he says he is. We shift back to James looking at the very nervous Kuro, wondering what he's looking at. But thanks to that, he managed to untie his bindings. But Kuro is still worried on their flank. Something's coming. But suddenly, a humanist turns the corner, and Kuro yells for everyone to get down. James steals Kuro's gun and shoots the humanist down. Another one flanks them, shooting at James, but Kuro protects him with a barrier, and then James finishes off that humanist as well. James asks if that's all the enemies, and Kuro says that it is. James tells Kuro that his power is amazing, and hands him back his gun. Han sees this, but knows what's going on. The group needs to move out. We see a group of humanists blow the doors off a bunker, ready to dive into the rat's nest. We see the humanist leader yelling a speech to his men. Psychers are the one who caused their problems. Without them, the dragons won't invade. They've been gone for 10 years. These psychers are only being trained to control the world. Let the purge begin. We see Han group up with the other squads in the simulation dome. One of the inspectors starts to yell, but is grabbed by Simon, who tells him to shut the fuck up. He knows why they're doing this. One of them is responsible for this attack, a fucking traitor. Simon's aura flares up and the man shits himself, but Han tells Simon that that's enough. Protecting these people is also one of their duties. Simon looks and walks away. We shift to Instructor Wei being badass defending the weapons training arena, but he is injured defending the young cadets behind him. He looks towards his bracelet and calls out for Han. We shift back to Squad 13 rushing to Wei's position. They need to protect the first years. Wei told Han that the humanists are headed for the shelter. Their target is all of the young kids. Han knows that they are vulnerable and they need to rush to protect them. If they are late, they all could die. The humanists kill another instructor, but are having a hard time maneuvering the shelter. Han hears some radio static and the squad found enemies in the entrance to the shelter and they're engaging. The humanists don't have heavy weapons, so Han asks Simon if he can block their fire. Simon takes the lead and the group charges in to a barrage of bullets. Simon blocks all of the shots and yells for his own squad to open fire, while he blinds all of the humanists. They are taken out with ease and one of the men is still alive, cursing these mutant bastards, but he is quickly put out of his misery by Canute. Han tells him to calm down. More are inside. He looks towards the men that he chose for his squad and he tells them that they all have things in common, but please take this advice. I learned the hard way the consequences of being carried away by emotion, and I won't make that same mistake again. Starting now, suppress all of your anger, otherwise the entire squad will be in danger. We shift back to Han laying out the plan to all the other squads, and assigns leaders telling them to get to their locations. Dimitri asks Han if he can do something on his own and leave the second in command in charge, and Han lets him. And we see Dimitri enter the psychiatric ward, looking at the man who hospitalized him. Dimitri tells him that whoever is in his head is on our side. Snap out of it. The man turns. Do you think Ark is really on your side? You wouldn't know until you're put into real missions. As third years, I have experienced unimaginable fear. Every bone in my body was telling me that we can never win. This must be dragon fear. The man continues. We are nothing more than pawns to Ark. Pawns that are expendable. It'd be a waste to not do anything with us, so what they do when a cadet isn't sufficient is recycle. They restrict their bodies and use drugs to control their minds, and Ark isn't the only one doing this. All of the major governments are after the same thing, one way or another. The psychers will only be ever used as tools. It's useless to risk your life to protect this shitty race. Dimitri smiles and unzips his jacket. He doesn't like Ark either, but he has a family to return to. But first, they need to kill those fucking dragons, and after that, they can kill whoever stands in their way. We shift back to Han's team who is down in the shelter. Han tells another squad that the enemy is headed towards them, but we see one of the humanists load a grenade launcher. Han is maneuvering the shelter but notices something and telling everyone to stop. A trap. A grenade strapped to a wire. Han thinks that maybe Kuro should have came with. The humanist leader opens up the shelter doors and tells his men to kill all of the kids. The humanist leader wants to show no mercy. These kids will rule the world. One of his men starts to protest. Killing unarmed children is not what he signed up for, but he is shot dead by the leader instantaneously. History will determine the righteousness of their actions. We do what we must. We shift back to Han's squad and Canute is hit in his leg, trying to pass a corridor. Han tells Simon to cover him and they peek the corner together. A humanist holds up a grenade launcher and Simon can't put up a shield fast enough. As the grenade is fired towards them, Han uses his control to grab the grenade and throw it back on the humanists, blowing them up. Han uses this opportunity to rush in, taking care of the rest. Han overhears the voice comms between the humanists, and Shelter A has been cleared, heading to Shelter D now. We shift back to Dimitri as he's fighting the third year, but is getting crushed. He's sent into the wall and punched hard into the stomach, making him cough up blood. The man grabs a spear and fills it with energy, telling Dimitri that sometimes there are people you can't beat, no matter how hard you try. But as he tries to whack Dimitri, the spear dissolves. Dimitri's psychic power spikes, and he never understood how he ever lost to a coward like this. We go back to Han's squad and we see Canute sitting in the hallway with his injured leg. We flash back to when he built a raft in the island survival, and how excited Han was to have him in his squad. Canute thinks that he's failed to meet any of his team's expectations, and even now he's been left behind. He curses his own weakness. We shift back to the battle simulation dome and the humanists are attacking the position. One man starts to throw a grenade, but a psyker manages to divert it into the air. The humanists are not gaining any ground. They're running out of time. The ARC soldiers will be here soon. The cadets are gaining morale and Han's plan is working. They just need to stall until help arrives. We shift back to the shelter as the humanists are cracking the next door. Their men are being killed. We see Han running through the labyrinth and sees the location of the leader. Before he turns the corner to the next humanist squad, he tells his men to halt and go over the plan. The battle is raging on. An unnamed bomber is headed towards the fourth simulation dome, and this looks dire. We shift back to Han's plan and he wants to maneuver through the vents that lead to Shelter D so they can reach the kids before the humanists do. Simon thinks that this plan has a high chance of casualty, but Han doesn't see another option. He has to save those kids. But Canute walks up and it seems that now he is needed. Simon compliments his healing factor skill, and now we shift to Canute traveling through the vents. He starts making noise inside of the vent, taking the attention away from the humanists. Han turns the corner with his squad at that very second, blasting the humanists that are distracted. Simon uses his power to block the incoming fire, but Canute is shot out of the vents. Both sides are at a standstill, and Han needs to stop them now. But Canute stands up, battered and bloodied, asking what these guys think they're doing. Do you know how annoying it is to sit out because you're a burden? Canute's body turns green, and his healing factor kicks in, and he says that this is awesome. He raises up his weapon, and we shift back to Kuro defending the dome. But he gets a chilling vision as he sees the jet coming to bomb them. He looks up and says that it's a good thing that Han isn't here to die. Kuro looks up at the jet, sending multiple rockets at their position. The instructors are in despair. This is an air raid. James and Jose look up concerned. Kuro thinks that life at Ark was no joke, but he doesn't want to go back to what he had before. He thanks Han for what he did. It's good that you're not here. You shouldn't die in a place like this. But interrupting Kuro's thoughts is Han yelling at him to never give up. Kuro's power surges and he manifests a hand out of psychic energy to block all of the incoming missiles, causing them to explode in midair. James is in awe. He has never seen or heard anything like this. For energy to take shape like that. The instructor, who was a spy, sees this and now knows that these monsters should not be allowed to exist. He grabs his gun from his jacket and aims it at Kuro. We shift back to Han telling Canute to open his eyes. Can you hear me? Canute wakes up but tells Han that he's fine. Han tells him that it worked out this time, but that was way too reckless. We don't even know how far your power goes. Han helps Canute up, but the first year's evacuation zone is clear, along with Zone A and B, the gym, and the battle simulation dome. It seems the battle is over. 3 days pass and Han is seen overlooking the city from a rooftop. James approaches asking how the boy is doing. He says he's fine but he couldn't sleep without medication, and some guys are still in critical condition. It's hard for them to suppress their murderous intent. Han saw a lot of dead first years who had no chance to protect themselves. They might be considered monsters, but they were just kids. This will only further the future the humanists fear, causing psychers to feel hatred towards them. James gets a chill, but Han relaxes his serious look. He doesn't want something like that to happen. James is shocked that the man in front of him is only a teenager, and what Kuro did genuinely scared him. But Han is on a different level. Han thanks James for saving Kuro, and in the end, James ended up saving Kuro before he was shot, while he was passed out. And James himself dealt with the traitor. Now, the higher-ups are going to have a hard time doing anything about Ark. Han, you must think it's all or nothing in this war against the dragons. If we survive that, where will these new weapons be pointed at each other? That's why James is here, to protect the interests of his country. He knows it's hard to hear this, but that's the truth. But as James walks away, Han coldly tells him that that's a cowardly excuse. If you know something is a mistake, these words scare James as he leaves. This incident, along with the dimensional tear, caused major damage to Ark. The majority of the first years died, and those who survived dropped out. The second years had to undergo psychological training. We see Han walking the halls and he spots Silence. He was the only one promoted to third year after this battle.